So they are ready to share, and it really is encouraging, not just to hear what God is doing in other places, but what's really encouraging is to see people come alive because they're being used by God. And there just are few experiences in this world that are more joyful than to be able to be the point in which heaven touches earth. And so if you get a second, take a moment and hit them up. Well, as they learned on their trip, the sustaining factor in all mission is love. And so I want us to take a look at this passage, just a few verses this morning. The big idea this morning is simply this: the mark of maturity is not how much you know, it is how well you love. The mark of maturity, according to the way of Christ, is not how much you know, it is displayed in how well you love. Sometimes life is extremely complicated. There's too many moving parts, too many expectations, and way too many voices telling us what matters most and what we're supposed to care about the most. But then there are moments when everything distills down to just one or two very simple truths. And that's what happens right here in John 13. Judas, remember, has just left the room. The air is heavy. The shadow of the cross is beginning to stretch across the table. And Jesus, knowing that his time is short, doesn't give his disciples a checklist. He doesn't give them a creed. He doesn't give them a code of conduct. He gives them a single command that holds everything else together. A new command I give you: love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. This, my friends, I believe is the center of it all. When the noise fades and the doctrines settle, this is what remains: love as I have loved you. This is not a sentimental love. It is not polite tolerance, not liking people who like you, but the kind of love that stoops and serves, forgives, and stays. And it will change the world. The best PR marketing campaign in all of biblical history is this: love one another as I have loved you. Love becomes the draw. We don't have to stress ourselves out to be clever and to trick people to church. We just become a community who loves, and those who need love, I promise you will find us. But the prerequisite is, are we willing to commit ourselves to building a community that prioritizes above everything else obedience to Jesus in this, his final command: love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. John 13, verse 31. When he was gone, meaning, we're referencing Judas, Jesus said, now the Son of Man is glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will glorify the Son in himself and will glorify him at once. My children, I will be with you a little longer. You will look for me, and just as I told the Jews, so I tell you now, where I am going, you cannot come. A new commandment I give you: love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this everyone will know that you are my disciples if you have love for one another. I would encourage you to write that on a card this week and post it where you see it. Because that day, those times when things get confusing, and let's face it, the life of faith is confusing. I just encouraged someone with the gospel counsel yesterday, and I said this profound thing. Look, at any moment, things are about to get better or about to get worse. And how you can discern which is coming is which one you're in. And that is the rotation of life. You're doing good today? Praise God. Things about to get worse. Are you doing bad today? Take courage. Things are about to get better. It is always, always, always. And anyone who tells you anything is probably selling something. That is what life looks like. But at the end of the day, when we get overwhelmed, well, should I believe this doctrine or that doctrine? Should I believe in that prayer practice or practice it this way or this and that? And what about this political conviction? And what about this activity? And is it okay? And can I drink some wine? And if I can, how much before Jesus gets mad at me? I mean, we get all of these things in our head. And we complicate things. And on those days, you have to understand all the things you can evaluate your life over, of all the things you can spend time feeling guilty and ashamed and feel like you're not doing that great. It all comes down to this one thing. At the end of that moment, take a deep breath and just say, Jesus, make me love better. That is what it comes down to. If you are confused, stop trying to disentangle the confusion and rest on what you know. And what you know is this: by this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. It's the most important thing. Jesus begins, in fact, this section with, now is the Son of Man glorified. And I've never paid attention to the language in this story quite like I have the past few weeks as I've been walking through it. Especially these time-bound statements that are in it. Now the Son of God is glorified. What's strange, and what I think is fascinating, is that this statement is said right after Judas walks out to betray him. Like on one level, we say, this is the dark moment of the story. And Jesus says, this is the glorious moment of the story. The glory of God is about to be revealed, not through miracles, not through majesty, but through surrender. This is how the glory will come. The cross will not look like triumph, but my friends, make no mistake, it will be triumph. God's glory we see then, and I don't know how you conceive of it, but I have gone on a journey from thinking of the glory of God as something static to something dynamic. And the truth of the matter is, I'll confess, I am so grateful for that movement of my heart, because thinking of God's glory as distant and static was very harmful to my soul. Because I am wired to be overwhelmed with something bigger than myself, and yet at the same time, I am deeply wired for intimacy, to be known and loved in pure honesty, and to be able maybe to reflect that back. So in doing that, we have to understand that the way we conceive of God becomes very, very important. I remember when folks come in and we talk, and they're in a dark season of deadness and not a lot of passion and maybe lots of doubts. And we always talk about their prayer life, not in, oh, well, I'll figure this out real quick. You pray? Nope, figured this is what happens. Maybe you should pray. That'll be, leave $100 on the desk on the way out. No, not at all. I get that. And so one of the things I like to inquire is, tell me about when you pray. And usually someone will tell their routine or what they say. I'm like, no, not that. Tell me about when you address God. In your imagination, where does your mind go? And most people say, I look to the heavens. I pray to the God who's in the heavens. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. God is everywhere. But if God is everywhere, it means your glance doesn't just have to be here. And I love to say, try this for 2 weeks and let's talk. Every day in the next 2 weeks, when you close your eyes and pray, and instead of you letting your mind go, thump, let it go. Thump. Lord Jesus. Just expand where you are. Do you see? It's not, God, I need you. God, I want to, let me return to you. That's never the truth. He never leaves, but we forget all the time. And so we return to this practice where we recognize that we are praying to the God that, yes, dwells in the heavens, but he also has made his home in you. This is the revelation of the Apostle Paul to the Gentiles. There was a mystery hidden for the ages, but now the mystery has been revealed, and it is this: Christ in you, the hope of glory. You know what it means that it was a mystery and then it was revealed? It means it always was true, but we didn't know it. That's what it means. It was still true, but we weren't aware. And growth is simply increasing one's awareness of what God has already done and is already doing. My friends, God's glory isn't static perfection. It is dynamic participation. God's glory is not detached. It's not detached power. It is relational love at work within the suffering, not above the suffering, but within the suffering. And when we love like this, when we stay faithful in pain, when we forgive when it costs, and when we keep showing up even though it is hard, we are participating at those moments in the very life of God. To love another person is not merely to imitate God, it is to share God's energy, God's very movement of being. We are in trial in the far of home because we are hosting an annual dinner that comes up at the end of November. And the guest list has grown joyfully. But what that means is that I am in indentured servitude between now and that food. I like to think I'm not lazy. It's just cleaning is so darn boring. So I have to do things to stimulate me. So I know I may lose some man card over this, but this makes up for it. Come on. I love to put in musicals. And the less people at home, the better. I just crank it way up. So one of my favorite, and I was doing one of my assignments this week, is I was listening to Les Mis. I just love it. And I was reminded once again, it was the line that when I first heard it in my 20s in an office, someone was playing it somewhere down the office building and I could hear it. I just was captivated by it immediately. And it comes at the end of the stage play anyway. And this line is sung: to love another person is to see the face of God. To love another person is to see the face of God. You see, my friends, this is why God gives us art. It can just bypass the logic sometimes and speak directly to the heart in the most powerful of ways. So when Jesus says, now the Son of Man is glorified, he's saying this is what God looks like in motion. This is love poured out, not held back. And he turns to the disciples and he says to them, my children, I will be with you only a little longer. This is the language of a parent preparing their kids for adulthood. This is Jesus saying, if you remember nothing else in these last moments, if I could think of the most important thing to say to you, if you remember nothing else, please remember this. And this commandment actually isn't new in content. So why is it called a new commandment? Because although it's not new in content, it is new in expression. And that renewal of expression means something to you if you have felt the call to live your life following the way of Jesus. Then this expression is extremely instructive for the way we shape our spiritual formation. Israel had already been told to love their neighbor. But this love is as I have loved you. And how had he loved them? He washed their feet. He wept with them. He forgave them. He died for them. The love of Christ is not sentimental, my friends. It is cruciform. It takes the shape of a cross. And the mark of spiritual maturity is not how much we know, it's how well we love. And Jesus echoes this right here. You know, if you remember, especially offensive, it was really offensive to me. One of the most offensive chapters in the Bible to me growing up was 1 Corinthians 13, because it lists all the activities that I wanted to do rather than love. Yeah, loving people's hard, but maybe a heroic story of going somewhere and getting martyred. Oh, that'd be really glorious. Yes, loving individuals are hard because they're annoying sometimes, but I would love to stay distant and just give my possessions away. And maybe I'll get a news article about all that happened because I gave my possessions away. Of course, now I can do that easily. Everything's a moment for Instagram. You know, oh, wait, can you give me that shirt back? Yeah, just 1 second. Okay, now come get it again. But Paul says you can do all, you can even give your body to be burned. But if you don't love, it profits you nothing. I can have all the right answers, but if love is not growing in me, then I have missed the point. I don't grow by knowing, I grow by doing, and I grow by loving. What time is it here? I can't go off too many soapboxes. Let's see if I can just summarize this quickly, although I didn't prepare, so we'll see what happens. I have learned most of this work on the job. I thought you might have a gift of communication if you like to talk. And I do. But talking is not communicating. Communicating, that's a lot more difficult skill to acquire. And in my zeal, I know that from time to time, I probably create unnecessary tension and antagonism in the hearts of people who are listening, because communication is a process that I learned, which means I just didn't do it so. I'm not saying I do it great now, but it's a whole lot better than it was before. And I didn't do it so great. And so I know that in my desire to communicate, I just talked and therefore miscommunicated. But one of the things I'm most misunderstood from this in surveying the anecdotal conversations is this belief that I think that sin doesn't matter. There's no such thing as sin. We don't need to talk about sin. The first person that ever left after I became pastor left, and they were so mad at me and said, you just talk about the good stuff of God, not any of the negative. And so therefore we're leaving. But that is not an accusation I was prepared for as the first one that I lost. And but I understood where they were getting at. I'm going to let you a secret. My grace apprehensive brethren that warn me and sometimes warn other people not to listen to me want that because they understand that sin harms people, and therefore they need to be warned against it. here's the secret. I want what they want. It's just, I know this. I never broke free of a condemned sin. I have only become free of sin I was convinced was forgiven and that I was loved in the midst of committing it. And that's a hard thing to accept from the heart. Up here it's okay, but from the heart it's not. And so to me, it's that legalism doesn't work to accomplish that goal. What does is becoming so transformed by the love of Jesus, you begin to walk away from the deeds of the flesh and manifest the fruit of the Spirit unconsciously. Not through discipline, not through schemes, not through plans, but it's because of who you are. Your presence becomes love, and then love is no longer a performance. But as long as we think that the real us is the one that's still gunky and messed up and out of the light of God's holiness because we're so dirty, as long as I believe that, then I'm always performing love. I don't want you to see this guy. I want you to see the performance guy who performs love. I don't want to perform love. I want to be love incarnated. I want to embody a loving presence. That can only happen when we stop making sin the idol because it's the only thing we're preoccupied with, and instead turn your gaze to Jesus. Let the things of this world, including your failure, shame, and sin, grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. That is why I believe this is so very much important. Jesus doesn't tell them, go love perfectly. He says, love as I have loved you. Now think about that for a moment, because that's different. You are not the source of this love. Now that's really creates space for the pressure to be off. You're not the source of the love. You're just the vessel. The Christian life, or a Jesus-shaped spirituality, isn't about trying harder. It is about abiding deeper. You're not asked to generate love. You're invited to participate in the flow of divine love already moving through creation. And the more you practice it, the better you get. The more you're not just, I can be so alone in a room like this. I feel more alone usually in crowded rooms than I do when I'm by myself. And I get, it's social anxiety things. I get preoccupied with this, that, and the other. But now, instead of social anxiety, I'm, by the grace of God, recognizing, and this room isn't full of anxiety. There's love all over the place. It's right there, and it's right there, and it's right there, and I can see it there. And I can see it in that gesture, and I can see it in this body language. Love is constantly the atmosphere in which we are breathing, my friends. Paul celebrated, in him we live and move and have our being. Well, him we know is God, and God is love, which means in love we live and move and we have our being. Love is not a demand to perform. It's an invitation simply to remain. Because the more you abide, the more love becomes your natural state. That's why Jesus ties this commandment to joy and blessing later on. We'll see it in a couple of months in John 15. Abide in my love is what he says. This is what we might call a secure attachment. It's a secure attachment to God, which is the felt sense that you are loved and seen and safe. And my friends, that vision can heal the wounded parts of your soul. And then he finally says this, by this everyone will know that you're my disciples, if you have love for one another. Do you realize what this means? It means the church's credibility doesn't come from power. It comes from presence. The church's credibility does not come from power. It comes from presence. When we love one another well, we become living visions of the invisible God. When you love, you are a window through which divine light shines into human darkness. So the call, my dear friends, is not to act loving simply, because the call is not to perform love. It is to embody love, so that those around you catch the fragrance of heaven whenever they are in your presence. And when you walk in love, you become a magnet for God's favor. People may not understand it, but they will feel the peace when you're around, because you carry the atmosphere of Christ. Remember what Paul says in Philippians 4? Let your forbearing spirit be made known that the Lord is near. It comes from the Spirit, not your mouth. If people only know Jesus is near because you say it, then there's still room for growth. They should feel it. It should never have to be performed. It should be the atmosphere that is the energy of our lives. So, how can we begin? Well, as my dear friends in the recovery community taught me years ago, they said, Artie, you're just never, and this hurt, you're never going to think yourself into behaving better. Which is what I want to do, is just think and think and think and think and think until I no longer feel the conviction to act, and then I'll go watch The Office. They say you can't think yourself into behaving better, but you can act yourself into thinking better. And I thought, wow, that is a truth I have carried with me for over 2 decades now, and I think that there's something to that. So this week, I want you to take one of the one another passages from Scripture. Now, I've only given you a sample of 5 because you could use one each day of the week. But there are, I think, between 13 and 15 of these phrases in the New Testament. Maybe serve one another, encourage one another, forgive one another, pray for one another, bear one another's burdens. So take those 5, and every day this week, pick one and live it. Just one each day. If you do this, here's what I can guarantee will happen. You'll begin to notice how love moves from theory to rhythm. How grace starts showing up in unexpected places like the grocery line, in the text you send, in the small kindness that costs nothing, but it might mean everything to someone else. That's how love grows. It happens through participation, my friends, not through perfection. The goal of perfection is the death of a vision of becoming all you can be in the grace of God. After Judas leaves, Jesus doesn't close the door, because Jesus is creating the kind of world where love wins. And here's the mystery. Every single time you love someone, you are continuing the incarnation. Every act of compassion, every moment of forgiveness, and every breath of gentleness. These are the ways Christ keeps walking the earth through you. These are the reasons why St. Francis could tell his followers, walk the earth as the pardon of God. One of my favorite things I've ever read from the life of St. Francis. Because I was taught to walk the earth as the rebuke of God. Walk the earth as the judgment of God. Walk the earth as the correction of God. And then one day, in reading that little beautiful biographical, The Little Flowers of St. Francis, I read that phrase, walk the earth. Oh no, it wasn't said by him, I'm sorry. This is even more beautiful. It was said about him by one of his close friends after he died. He walked the earth as the pardon of God. What a beautiful vision. Let us not just believe in love, let's become it. Because when love moves through you, the world will know what God is like. As the worship team comes forward, let's do something a little different. I'd like you to pray the prayer with me. So it's in your notes. So if you would stand with me, and we're going to pray this prayer together. I will pray a phrase, and then you can pray it after me. After that, we will have communion. If you are a visitor, you are welcome here, and you are welcome at the Lord's table. But if for any reason you're uncertain about what's going on here, or you just don't feel comfortable, that is no problem. You just stay in your seat. People will pass right on by, and you will not be shamed or embarrassed. But if you'd like to participate, we'd like for you to. We end our services because it's the first day of the week, and we want to remind ourselves that the nurturing of our life is Christ. We are nurtured by the life of Christ. So we take this moment and recognize this beautiful sacrament that was given to us. So you'll be welcome to take that. We will move from the front row to the back, and you'll kind of see the order. But as we prepare for that, would you pray with me? Just repeat after me. Jesus, you who loved to the end, teach us to love like you. When our hearts grow tired, help us to rest in your strength. When we want to withdraw, remind us that love is the shape of glory. Let your love flow through us this week. In our homes, our workplaces, our silence, and our service. And may we be known not for what we know, but how well we love. Amen.